Okay, this is number 5 in my series on the subject of how do you prepare for retirement. It's directed not to the rich. I wouldn't even know how to go about that. It's supposed to be easy. But for people of average or lower income, this would be most appropriate. Item number 5 has to do with eating out. If you are retiring single as a widow or widower, then it's a real temptation to eat out often because it's really hard to cook a meal for one person and keep any kind of variety whatsoever. We oftentimes treat eating out as a social event, and it can be. But to put things in perspective, you can generally prepare a meal at home for what you pay for a tip at a casual dining restaurant. So if your budget's tight, the place you can save the most money is to eat out infrequently, not so much, once in a while, or never. To get a balanced meal, which I'm guilty of not doing because I don't like to deal with leftovers. At one time, years and years ago, I had one of these sealers, that would suck out all the air, and then you could put it in your refrigerator or a freezer, and it'd last a good while. I might ought to buy another one of those and cook larger quantities of things, particularly things that use produce. Produce just doesn't keep well, so unless you seal it up some way, it's going to be a lot of waste. And while it is so much cheaper to prepare your meals at home, it does cost money. And to see any of that food go down the garbage disposal is sad. So at any rate, in your budget, and I'm going to get to that topic soon, break out the cost of what you're allowing for eating out away from your food budget. And if things are tight, you just don't go out to eat so much. So I don't know what more I can say about that. It's very simple to say. It may be difficult for some people to do, but that's the way you can continue to earn your retirement, is to do your own cooking, house cleaning, and any necessary yard work, light home maintenance. Any of that will save you money, but be sure to put in your budget each of these things, so that you know that you have a surplus each month. And you need a surplus. You need to continually put money back, even if it's a small amount, to cover the big things, big ticket things that you don't anticipate: home repair, plumbing, electrical work. Those things can just make your money evaporate. And then there's things like here in Florida, if you don't have air conditioning, you can't live in Central Florida. So you got to keep that maintained. And you got to keep a good roof on your house. So hopefully when you retire, you've got a $20, $30, $40,000 put aside that you use just for those emergencies. There's a lot of articles written about how much you should save and how much of that you should withdraw to make it last the rest of your life. I don't look at it that way. The money that you have put aside is for covering unanticipated emergencies. Without that, life can get pretty rough, pretty quick. And God forbid you go into debt to do any of these things, because the interest you'll pay on that comes right out of your monthly budget. So take this to heart. When you go out to eat, be sure that it's not going to strain your budget. If you've overdrawn your budget in certain categories, then you can always cut back on what you've allocated for eating out by not eating out. And so a budget, which I'll cover in great detail and show you my budget as well. You got to have a budget. You should have had a budget as soon as you learned to read and write. Unfortunately, our public schools don't teach personal finance at all. That's true when you go into a store and actually pay cash and see the cashier struggle to make change. Anyway, I think that pretty well covers it. So if you're finding these videos useful, please subscribe. And if you like a particular video, hit like. It encourages me to continue. Although this is an important part of my retirement, is to be doing things. And it's rewarding for me to be able to share some of the things I've learned in life, some things a very hard way, so that you can be a jump ahead of me in my life. So anyway, I'm here with heavy clothes on. Down here in Central Florida right now, it's about 45, 46 degrees. You guys up north, that's nothing. In fact, yesterday I was out, it only got up to 66, I think. And some of our snowbirds who live here part-time were out walking around wearing shorts. But if you come from Wisconsin or any of the northern climates, that's 66 degrees is great, isn't it? The pools we have in our village here are heated. So if you can stand the exposure once you get out, then they're quite pleasant. I have purchased a Turkish bath robe, which is quite warm and absorbent. So I can go down there and I go into the heated pool, and it's usually about 80, 85 degrees. And then I spend 15 minutes in the hot tub, which is, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's probably 100 degrees, to bring my body temperature up. I get out of that, dry off, and then immediately put on the robe. And so doing that, I can actually swim most all days in the winter. After all, we don't have the pastimes down here of shoveling snow or worrying about black ice if we're out driving. It's a tough life, but somebody's got to do it. Oh, I don't mean to erode that in. For those of you who are up north, I did spend one full year in Wyoming and lived through a winter where we get down to like minus 25 degrees. And for this old Georgia boy, that was cold. The thing I dreaded most about it was, since I didn't have a heated garage, I'd have to take the battery out of the car, bring it inside each night, and go out the next morning in that minus 25 degree weather and put the battery back in and hope the engine would turn over. So, none of that. Oh, free at last, free at last. God Almighty, I'm free at last. And that pretty well sums up retirement. Retirement, or throughout life. These are the 3 rules to follow before spending money. And they are: number 1, do you need it? I'm not talking about want it, I'm talking about need it. Okay, if that's a yes, then you go to number 2. Do I need it now? If the answer to that is no, you put it off. And most of the time, you'll find out you really didn't need it after all. And 3, and probably the most important, is can you pay cash? With the exception of a home, you should always pay cash. Now, you may use a credit card for the convenience of it, but you have to be able to pay that off, that balance off completely at the end of that billing cycle. This is something I taught my children, and for the most part, they've done pretty well with it. And if you're going to retire, you should start this practice early so that you can be debt-free and have some cash in the bank before you retire. So this little clip I'm going to add to almost every retirement video I do. It's so important, not just for retirement, but for life. If you find this useful, please subscribe. If you like it, hit like. For some people, these 3 rules may be extremely uncomfortable, unpleasant. But hey, if you want to retire and not be in debt, then this is one of the things most important to achieving that.